One of my commenters mentioned something. It was sort of just a random one-off comment. In response to my sudden run of capital gains, they were surprised there wasn't any sort of regulation of powers. It gave me pause, and as is the usual thing when I have questions, I decided to look it up. Outside of explicit regulations pertaining to working with for the HFY, there was surprisingly little regulation of anything super-related, in the US at least. Yeah, invading minds with psychic abilities was out, but that was about it. I mean, in 10 years, no one had actively created any significant regulations concerning us outside of the HFY. How the fuck does that even work? I had to get a license to catch fish, but not even traffic regulations for speedsters. So I did some more digging, and I got pretty pissed. So at 14, you get enrolled in the academy to learn to control your powers and abilities, and get the education for eventual work with the HFY. After that, supers immediately joined the HFY and start their careers under them, or like Anna, they go to college for a more specific degree, then work for the HFY in one capacity or another. Here's the part that got me. Contracts. People had talked about the things that child actors went through. There was a whole-ass documentary on it. But the whole thing with supers was under a shroud. Until I found the contracts for Blacklash, she was the one who'd held the black tendril ability until Reva killed her. After her death, Blacklash's wife found the old copies of the contracts and posted them online. They were almost immediately taken down, but it's the internet. The difference between immediately and almost immediately was a wider gulf than a lot of people realized. Nothing came up on a reverse Google image search, but I didn't stop there. I kept rooting through the internet, and no reputable site had anything. It had been online, and then all trace seemed to vanish from the world. This is more or less when I backed it up, and using a VPN went off-road. I needed the information, so I did what it took to get there. Reaching out with my technopathy and sifting through with a clear goal, I saw it and printed out all of the documents. A nearly 300-page NDA agreement, and then as I was looking over the contract itself, I started to see a pattern in the wording. I looked up similar wording going through a legal site and got directed to a site that covered legality for child actors and other celebrities who were minors. The contract I would have entered into would have been like this, specifically sculpted, including an absolutely insane morals clause. The NDAs essentially had the same weight as slipping classified information to China. They were literally worded to completely annihilate not only the enhanced individual's life, but it would burn their family down around them as well, since it would be the parents that signed it. Then you spend 4 years at their academy under the morality clause and other stipulations, and at 18, you're given the bill that's been accumulating the whole time, and you're given more paperwork for contract work through the HFY. The tuition price of the academy? Only around $250,000 for 4 years in bankruptcy-proof debt, before you factor in the ones like Anna, who then went to college. Violated the morality clause, huge fines which got tacked onto your debt, the lowest of which, for point of example, was $10,000 for conduct unbecoming an empowered individual. Decide to fuck off right at 18? Well, sure you can. Just give us back the $250,000 in tuition, and if you don't, we'll just deduct it from your every paycheck before you ever see the money. International treaties had been established to stop countries from poaching other nations' supers. No one wanted to compete with US's wallet, so regardless of where you went in the world, you were still screwed since you couldn't get work there, and your home country was still owed their monies. The few countries that you might be able to work something out in were not the sorts of places you wanted to be. The adult contracts, much like military service, they included abridgements of constitutional rights such as free speech, privacy, the right that made psychically pulling information from your mind illegal, and you couldn't be charged on crimes in a normal court, but a special one, similar to a court-martial. The NDAs got refreshed as well, this time with steeper fines and penalties for breaking it. All fines would be added to the loan balance, so nothing came out of pocket, but the interest on that stacked up. The kids who joined the academy would hit 18 with a mortgage already, and a second one for college tuition. All in all, you would be over $400,000 in bankruptcy-proof debt by the time you had a degree. That was why they were so hard up to get me in the academy. To get that financial weight around my neck. It could be used to control. How many parents had been duped into this? Parents of the enhanced, if my parents' reactions were to be used as a general gauge, were worried about their kid, and being sold this giant story about how great the academy was and how awesome your life would be with a guaranteed career. Even when they considered me an F tier, the only one in existence, they'd been giving the full court press to join up, let alone someone like Crimson who had a higher tier power. Tim, the former owner of Riva, was still in the psychiatric wing of OHSU. 2 years under Riva had taken its toll on him. I packed up the contracts and rolled out. Since I'd been the one who saved him from Riva, the staff was generally well disposed to letting me visit with him. And I'd been checking in when I could. He didn't really talk that much, and I got it. I'd seen plenty of kids in school who got bullied that clammed up, and that was just the sort of low-level abuse. This? Yeah. I'd cry in a corner forever myself. He was watching a documentary in his room when I entered. It was on Egyptian myths and legends.
Hey, Tim, I need your help with something.
Tim nodded.
"'Kay."
I dropped the contracts on the small rolling table by his bed.
You familiar with these?
Tim's eyes bugged out as soon as he saw them.
I'll take that as a yes. Are they real?
He'd been to the academy, then gotten his graduates in archaeology, then started work. If anyone knew these contracts, it was him. Flipping past the cover page, he saw the name and spoke.
"Blacklash. Yeah.
Time teared up.
I can see her face. Begging me. She has a daughter."
I knelt down and I could feel Riva pulsing. It had been becoming more aware of all that it had done, who it had hurt, and its pulse soundlessly matched the sobs of Tim. I put a hand on his shoulder while I held my backpack in my right hand.
Hey, crying is good, and that stuff? It wasn't you. It's not your fault. I get it. Reaver tried to kill me, so I have a fairly unique vantage point on this one, but we can set at least some of this down right now. It's not your fault. What happens to debt in the event of a hero's death?
He sniffled and blew his nose on a napkin and responded as he idly pretended to tie his shoes that had no laces in them, not looking up.
"If they died while on duty, the debts are forgiven. They're given a special burial in Arlington, too. But Blacklash isn't there. Her wife, She
released these. What happened to the debt?
He finally looked me directly in the eyes.
It fell on her. She was ruined."
I nodded and fished out a chocolate pudding cup for him. The nurses had pointed out he loved them. I got up and slung my backpack back up onto my shoulder.
All right, then. How about next time I bring a board game with me?
Tim followed my eyes with his.
"What will you do?"
I smiled and raised my eyebrows.
Same thing I always do. Piss off the HAA.
Outside, I took a moment to breathe and felt the voice of Riva from within.
HAA are the enemy?
In this they are, but no violence.
The government might be slow in a myriad number of ways, but once it came to violence, they were unmatched. What could I do? I had the contracts, but what to do with them? I mean, contacting Anna was just dead out. If these were true, she was under them too. She would help, sure, but it could easily cost her everything, potentially cost her family everything. That was too much to ask, and her job was important, not just to me. Okay, putting it back out on the internet was a wash. They swept it away once and kept it buried, and no other super was going to go off sides to help me. Blacklash's wife. I swung by Black Rock, grabbing a coffee and sitting over by the faux fireplace. How to find her? I texted Dad to tell him I'd be home later. I erased the message and called him directly.
Hey, Dad, your old company. Did they employ a headhunter?
Headhunters, however, needed a name if they were trying to scoop someone specific. I combed back through old interviews. Blacklash had been a decently popular hero based out of Atlanta, Georgia, and as a black woman who openly identified as lesbian, she'd been in a ton of interviews. All I needed was one of them, a time that she talked about what her wife did for a living. She wouldn't give out a name. Heroes were very wary of that stuff, with a notable exception. Looking around online, I got it, though I had to comb through rather a lot of false leads. Ironically, this was on YouTube as a reaction video. In the interview, she talked about her life, the normalcy of things outside of being a hero, and mentioned her wife working in human resources for a non-profit. Okay, so we have a career path, and non-profit would generally state that she hadn't been in it for the money. I checked the Atlanta obituaries the week of Blacklash's death. Wrong age, wrong gen. Ha. It took a while, and I'd had to search through multiple papers, but I found it. She was the right race, gender, age, and the article included that she was survived by her wife, Beth, and daughter, Marie. From there, I cross-referenced the names involved and looked up for a second to see I was about 6 large white chocolate peppermint mochas in. Well, I'm gonna need a 7th. Secure in my continuing drip of caffeine, I continued, okay, so we had a name, a career, the city, and it's a non-profit. I looked up non-profit groups in Atlanta, then cross-referenced with the details I already had, and boom, goes the creeper. Beth was working for a senior living group and had been there for almost 4 years, starting as a volunteer in college. Yes, she was now the human resources director. I called Dad, he called the headhunter, and the headhunter called Beth to arrange a good time for an interview. Me and Dad would fly out Sunday night, do the interview on Monday, and then Dad wanted to rent a car and wanted to go to some cafe in Louisiana to get donuts. All right, frickin' crazy, but let's do it. We booked business class tickets to Atlanta, set up the rental car, and generally got our stuff together over the next couple of days. We would be meeting Beth for lunch. Dad would mainly conduct the interview. But since I was running the show, me being there was important. The headhunter sent us her LinkedIn, and it looked like she was looking for work. I mean, honest truth, we need a proper human resources lead anyway. Amy insisted that, since I would be missing another basketball game, we needed to go shopping on Saturday, and I would get her a present. It seemed vaguely reasonable, and I mean, getting her something nice to wear wouldn't be such a bad experience. I was a little perplexed when she steered away from the clothing section, then past sporting goods, and ended up in lawn and garden. She seemed to know where she was going, so I just kinda tagged along, until she came to a spot and my head went to the side. A hammock. She did this to get a hammock.
This won't fit over at your apartment, not with the frame.
She scoffed.
No, silly, it's for your backyard.
Okay then, apparently I'm getting her a hammock for my house. I deeply didn't get the point here, but it was clearly amusing her, which was the current point. We got the hammock and some drinks and on back home. I got the hammock set up and looked over it.
Behold the hammock in all its glory.
She giggled a bit.
Well, go ahead, get in the hammock.
I shook my head. This was just an odd direction for this to go in. I got myself situated in the hammock.
It's nigh.
Amy climbed into the hammock, laying down on top of me so her head was on my chest, and her feet dangled over the end. Oh, yeah. I get the advantages of the hammock now.